Folks, we really have a lot of people to be very, very thankful for. We're going to turn our attention to our last exciting event of the day. There were a couple of people that we neglected to acknowledge earlier in the program, and I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to do that. We are very, very blessed to have one of our great partners that is in the room that really represents a wonderful organization. Amy, would you be kind enough? Amy Grad from ITAP is here, so we wanted to acknowledge Amy from ITAP. So thank you, Amy. Really appreciate it. Amy and ITAP were the recipients of an amazing award, which is kind of a lifetime legacy award that was bestowed upon them during World Trade Week by the LA Chamber. So we really appreciate ITAP's support and partnership in this. How do you guys feel, talking to the students in the back, how do you guys feel about the exhibitor section? Did you guys have a good time with that? Yeah. All right. So folks over here, you know, they've kind of laid the gauntlet. How about you? Did you guys have a good time over here? Yeah. They got food in the mouth, right? Let's hear it. Did you have a good time? All right. So folks, thank you. What we'd like to do, as you know, is keeping the opportunity to hear from amazing panelists who are distinguished individuals in their respective fields, representing the broad array of global trade, logistics, supply chain, digital e-commerce. We wanted to invite our panelists up to the stage. So if I can ask Jeff, CJ, and Will, if you could kindly join us on stage. We're going to be beginning our presentation, so go ahead. And Tracy, if you also come up on stage. What we're going to be doing is just to kind of give you a real quick orientation. It is very rare that you have an opportunity to hear about people who can look at a crystal ball and perhaps give you some ideas and clues as to the world in which we live in is heading. Now, these individuals are going to hopefully give you a great, broad overview. So I'd like to just give you a real quick orientation as to their backgrounds, and then we're going to hand it over to Tracy, who will lead us through this wonderful talk show panel. So let me just real quickly. So if you're wondering, we did have a little bit of a schedule change just to show you how the world of business is constantly moving. Keith Kaplan, who is one of the co-founders and CEO of the Tesla Foundation, actually had to respond to a cybersecurity related matter. Okay, so we're really privileged to be joined by Will Cashin, who is the chairman of the Tesla Foundation. How many of you guys enjoyed the UAV commercial drone table? Did you see that table? Right? So Will represents that organization, and we'll talk more about that. He has been in the field of aviation for over 40 years. He's helped create the third industrial revolution in the auto industry. He is also helping to build now that same mindset of change in the unmanned aerial robotics, better known as, or UAV, better known as drones, right? Tesla Foundation is building the new emerging commercial drone curriculum for STEM-oriented charter schools and colleges throughout the country. They've partnered with over 20 colleges and are adding new partners. Tesla Foundation is architecting America's technology or robotic systems today, and we're very proud to have Will join us to talk a little bit more about that. So thank you, Will. To Will's left is CJ Nord. CJ Nord, and you can ask her, she has this wonderful professional designation, CPM. CPM, right? You can ask her what that means. But she is the supply chain manager for California Faucets. That's her day job, but she also wears another hat. She is the trustee for the Institute for Supply Management, the LA chapter. Now, this organization is the oldest supply chain organization in the country, from my understanding, 100 years strong, right? Perfect. The organization is through volunteering, CJ has worked to build a strong network alliance among also the California supply chain organizations to support a vigorous economy for California that directly benefits the families in our communities. So we're also joined by CJ. So we'll give all these folks a deserving round of applause in a minute. And then to her left, we're joined by Jeff Williamson. And Jeff brings over 20 years of global marketing experience in Europe, China, Southeast Asia. He currently serves as the statewide director for the Centers for International Trade Development and the director of the California State Trade and Export Promotion since the year 2000. He's also developed, launched, and managed new initiatives and brands, including the California State Trade and Export Promotion program, and established new partnerships with Export Import Bank, better known as Exim Bank, and the California Food Drug Administration. Since 2007, he's also served as an adjunct professor of global marketing at Cal State Fullerton. He's earned his bachelor's degree in economics from Arizona State and an MBA from Cal State Fullerton. Okay, fantastic. So let's give this group of distinguished panelists a round of applause. So now, lastly, we are really pleased to be joining a wonderful professional. Tracy Young is, for those of you who are saying, I've seen her before, but I can't recognize where. Well, you will probably remember her from watching local CNN and headline news. She was actually one of the original anchors in the lineup of the network. And she's covered the ports of LA and Long Beach for over a decade. And she has had a broad industry background in healthcare and finance. And this was something that I found very interesting. In her junior year in college, she actually spent a year as a foreign student in France. And she will be serving as our talk show moderator. So with that, let's give Tracy a round of applause. And let's take it over.
Thank you. You're studying with anything else. So thank you, Brandon. I appreciate that. All right, so here's the deal. We're going to kind of have a little bit more energy up here than you may normally see, so if we're a little goofy, bear with us. But we realized we were getting to you after lunch, and we just came from some fun panels and we just ate. So if I'm a little over excited here, I apologize in advance. Go ahead and do it anyway, so respect. So we've got three people here who, think about it for a second, a chairman, a trustee, and somebody who's the statewide director of something. Those titles, these people have earned them. It's because they have incredible accomplishments for all the years that they have put into these industries. Okay, titles are great, but what I want to start with a little bit is, so what do they do on a daily basis? What are they responsible for accomplishing so you can get a feel for as they speak what it is they do, not just what their titles are. And Willem was kind enough to join us at the last minute, so I'm not going to start with him. We're going to let him. Jeff, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you. You've done a lot of really great things because you don't just do what you did today. You have a vast business experience before you came into what you're doing today, and you've worked around the world.
Thank you. So what my main function is on a daily basis, it really falls into two categories. One is that it's focused on export education. So working with the network of federal, state partners and college partners, we want to help get more education about exporting into the classroom, into the business community. The second thing that I do is I effectively lead the state export program for small business. And I think this is the two go together because just like in chemistry, you have a laboratory to test or experiment. When we're working with the small businesses and taking them to foreign markets, we are learning a lot about what's going on, the challenges they face, and some ways we can start preparing, students and everyone else for what's next.
I'm sorry, you have both what you do for a business perspective and then also what you're working on in regards to supply chain. Could you kind of help us understand a bit about it?
Sure. So my day job is supply chain manager for California Faucets. We make premium faucets, very high quality, and our niche is that we make them in an Amazon speed lead time. And that's all going on in Huntington Beach. I manage the supply chain from end to end, from the purchase of the materials to getting them here, the logistics to getting them here, and then getting them out to our customers. My job that I find very fulfilling, but doesn't pay in the bank, it pays in the bank in my heart, is supply chain volunteer work. And I serve as the trustee for the Institute for Supply Management. I also serve on several other boards of directors related to the field of supply chain management. And the reason that I do that is because a well-run supply chain does not waste money better spent on jobs. And that makes a real difference to the families in our community.
Well, would you mind including two things, which you had a career, a very successful one, and the company was sold, and then now you're serving as a chairman?
My background has always been in robotics for the most part. And now it's moved into, I guess, the next stage of robotics, which is total autonomy. My first gig was, we built automotive software. We built all the software for automotive assembly plants. So when you saw those pictures of all the robot heads moving, we built all that software. We were the first folks to be able to build a robot that was had enough dexterity to put a windshield in a car as it was moving down the assembly line. And we did that for about 15 years, and that was a big change in the marketplace. And now I see that happening all over again in the world of autonomy. And given that, we're very, very interested, the Tesla Foundation is very, very interested to make sure there's a unity between human beings and machines. We're very, very worried about that because in the third stage of the Industrial Revolution, which was the movement from fluid mechanics into electromechanics, we lost about 35% of the entire workforce of the United States. And so we want to protect all of you folks out there. We want to help you, help show you a way of what jobs you can get and things you can do.
When I think of Tesla, of course, the first thing that comes to my mind tends to be these incredibly beautiful 21st century cars that are battery operating at the same time. They're just a beautiful machine. But that's not what you're working on. Tell me about what you're working on and how international trade comes into that.
Well, the thing that we're very interested in is education, and that's what brings us here. I've been involved in logistics my entire life. We moved hundreds of millions of parts into an assembly facility, and at the end of the day, it became a car. But the things that we're doing now that's important is we want to educate people. We want people to understand where they fit in the role of autonomy. In the event that we don't do that, we'll lose a lot of families along the way because they'll lose business. Every time you hear in this world of a new president, whenever you hear him say, we're going to bring jobs back to America, I still don't know what those jobs are right now. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the future, but I'm left at a lurch. But our number one interest is to take all you folks and help you see what autonomy is going to be like and how you participate.
And CJ, same with you. How is international trade and logistics, and of course you say supply chain management, but international trade, how does that come into your day-to-day work, what you do, and then also your wonderful volunteer time?
Well, even if something says made in America on it, some part of it came from overseas. Everything's linked, not just linked learning, right? Everything is linked together. I buy from suppliers overseas. I'll place calls overseas. Just got back from a trip to Taiwan. So that's a way to link with our factory in the United States. And then one of my objectives is to bring parts that are made overseas back into the United States. So I'm always looking for what can I have here in the United States competitively enough that I can switch it over. And that helps me fill my customers' orders that much faster, right? Because it's just coming from the United States and not from the back of the arm.
What about the global opportunities for California Faucets to sell your products to what we commonly say is over 95% of the world's population resides outside of the United States?
There's a nice hotel in Qatar with our drains in it. So there are opportunities out there. We're not a huge exporter, but I think that there's quite a bit of opportunities. We could go into the high-end design.
Jeff, from an educational perspective, how important is it that the curriculum that we're putting together today and what you're thinking of for the future really make sure that we cover international trade?
Well, I think when we start looking at, and I teach at Cal State Fullerton, so I see students coming in, many from the community colleges, and also we get a number of international students coming in. And normally what I do is on the first day of class, I will survey them to find out their level of knowledge about certain aspects of international business. Something as simple as whether or not they know or are familiar with the harmonized fare system. Something like that I will ask. And you know, when we look at the American students, we are not as exposed, okay? We're not as exposed. Generally, maybe 10% of the students will raise their hand and they will know. And these are graduating seniors. The Germans, the Asians, the South Americans, if you will, coming in, 80% of them know. 80% of them know already. So our orientation toward trading is much less than our global competitors. The Germans are exporting 44% of their GDP. We're exporting about 13% of our GDP. And the future really is going to be about that. So the quicker we can get things, the students globally oriented, get them knowledgeable about the global systems, trading systems, about what's out there, I think is going to help us create jobs and money.
So you gave me a great lead-in. We're not going to commercial. We're going to stay with you, Jeff, if you don't mind. What trends are you seeing? Because as we're looking out there, it doesn't matter if you're a freshman in high school out there or you're a graduating senior from college, you want to think, what are the jobs that will be coming up in the future? And what kind of skills, what kind of education, what do I need in order to be prepared so I can go get the best job possible? It was my time to go with that.
It's okay.
Oh, it's okay. Is it okay? See? No, I
You're
feel like
fine. Don't worry.
not that I'm competitive.
Hey, anchor, I'm just a guest. Really the biggest trend that we see out there is if you were to put everything about global trade and logistics, everything together, one thing drives the world economy, and that's consumption. And we export because, okay, we make something, but nothing overcomes the demand, the desire to get something new. And so consumption is driving the economy, it's driven the economy since day one. The U.S. used to be the largest area of consumption in the world. That has dramatically shifted, It has shifted in terms you won't believe at the moment, except for, take a look at this graph and you see, this is what's projected. This is not entire consumption in the U.S. This is consumption by the middle class. There is a huge emerging middle class in developing markets. And this middle class is not the middle class that is earning like $50,000, $60,000 a year. This middle class is earning $20,000 a year, but they have a tremendous amount of disposable income. So we see a whole bunch of growth in more recent years with consumer products. Consumer products are going crazy. And not just like the luxury products we know is everywhere. You can buy Gucci and Prada and all these things in every country in the world. And there's always rich people taking care of that. And then you have the really cheap things that the local population buying for many years. What's happened is that since there's so much growth in these areas, the middle market is now filling out. And the U.S. has we have a tremendous number of middle-range brand. Middle-range brand that now all of a sudden is very affordable for people in developing markets.
Well, which makes sense. What did Apple just, you guys know, what did Apple just, their last phone was what? Smaller, and what else was it? Less expensive, right? Because they realized that we've upgraded so much here that we've kind of saturated our market, so how do they reach those other markets? They have to find a different kind of. CJ, what kind of trends have you seen?
Some of I think a trend that everybody here would be really interested in is the use of technology to advance the supply chain and to enable us to work on a collaborative level that was never possible before that technology or software was in place. And is it okay if I go into the supply chain optimization? Okay. So one of the most truly neato things going on right now is that the LA and Long Beach ports are working collaboratively to improve their supply chain. And there are things that are on the table now being discussed that were only whispered about in groups before. And it's really just a beautiful human effort where people are actually working together. They have all of the stakeholders at the table, and they're working out solutions that used to just be closed-door arguments before. And the platform that makes those solutions possible is often the technology. One of the examples is Cargomatics, which allows people to mate up a trucker with a delivery load, just like the Uber system does. And that was developed by an entrepreneur. And those things are present today, and they make it possible to just do things that we never even dreamed about.
I was thinking about what you're saying because just this week, two news sources that I follow is Cargo News and GOC, Journal of Commerce. And they announced this week that the truckers, there's now an app that is strong, functional, that the truckers can use, right? So they don't have to queue up outside, right? Instead, they have that app and they know when to show up at the port, so they're more efficient. And then also, we just heard announced this morning that now they have for the cold storage, so when you have something that is refrigeration that can spoil easily and so really valuable, is that now they're putting these trackers inside those cold storage containers so that they can track those. So it's like those kinds of things, we talked about those when we did the Cleaner Action Plan 10 years ago, right? It was 2006. We talked about that kind of stuff, but the technology just wasn't there. So it wasn't the will, it was the technology.
Well, in the loss of the cold storage container brings up a really great point. So if somebody lost that load of shrimp or whatever it was that needed to be kept cold, that company takes a loss, right? So what that means is to that company owner, they're not able to invest in benefits, and invest in jobs, invest in capital. That's a perfect example of how a well-run supply chain makes families' lives better.
Then, well, since that's what you guys are kind of working on, you guys are working on the future. That's what the foundation is basically doing. What kind of trends do you see? You kind of touched a bit about the past in the auto industry, but and I'm going to say the future. I'm going to use maybe like a 5-year time frame, you know?
Well, the world of logistics is going to be probably an incredibly favorable position for all of the play in. Even the last mile, which is, you know, the objective of the likes of Amazon and gosh knows how many other companies out there, is a tenuous situation. It's not easy to accomplish. Some of the things that we see in trends, and you've seen it all on television, where drones are delivering products to right to the person. Well, it's much bigger than that. Mercedes-Benz Freightliner division is working on unmanned trucks, and they're working on now unmanned ships. Rolls-Royce is in construction of an unmanned ship. So again, the trends are is that we have to pay attention to this, and we can't stand back and look at it and get excited about the pieces, because the pieces are part of the poison. If you're not paying attention, you're not changing your direction and paying attention to what's going on in your market and what's moving on in the national market, so that you can be a part of it and retain your place in that world.
I belong to a group, and somebody sent me a great blog. You can read this for just a moment. I believe that the drone technology will soon be commonplace in shipping. The U.S. Navy is already sending drones into shipboard fires ahead of fire parties. Anyway, it's a long paragraph. It also talks about how drones, and some of you guys saw the drone presentation today, about how drones are doing things like going in advance of the ships, whether it's for an iceberg or whether it's for a hazardous situation. How is it, in some ways, if somebody's interested in working on drones, this technology, how exciting is it that they may not be the captain of the ship, but they may be working on the software of the drone that could make the ship safer?
Yeah, well, again, it's all of those new opportunities that, kind of look at it this way, as a drone, whether it be a submersible, in other words, it goes under the water, or whether it's on land, ground-based drone, or whether it's an aerial robotic drone, something that's flying in the air. What it's done is it's opened up new categories of uses for applications that are too dangerous for people. When we were in the auto industry, we had at one time, and this is a positive thing and a negative thing. That's why I'm constantly going back to the exciting part of the trend and the negative part of the trend. We went to Ford Motor Company and we built a new paint shop that was totally robotic. When we went in, there were 28 people, and when we left, there were no people working in the paint shop. So although the technology was extremely exciting, and it was a very, very unique thing to have, and it really added a tremendous level of value of efficiency, it removed a lot of people's lives. And the reason why it removed a lot of people's lives is because there wasn't an ongoing situation that kept people abreast. Remember, technology turns every 6 months. So every 6 months, technology is turned by some leaf. And if we don't pay attention to that through watching television, reading magazines, doing whatever, we'll miss the trend and we'll find ourselves outside and with an inability to get inside because it'll be, a lot of competition. I'm sorry to sound like Darth Vader up here or whatever.
We'll forgive you. Jeffrey gave you a seat, so be careful. CJ, if you don't mind to ask, let's go to opportunities. I want to make sure that we got, and who's going to keep you on time here? Because I've been talking about it forever. She's keeping us. Okay, how are we doing?
You're good.
Okay, how much time do we have left?
About.
That's it, okay. CJ, I want to talk about opportunities because obviously we're being very clear up here that a lot of things are changing and it's exciting, but to just say that doesn't do any of you any good. I want to get into some very specifics about what kind of opportunities are out there. So again, whether you're a freshman in high school or you're a senior in college graduating, you have an idea of what kind of careers are possible. So since you're working in this day-to-day, CJ, what do you see? What should somebody out there look and say, someone said to them, if you don't want to go into that field, why does that know that you should go into this field?
Oh, well, you should go into what excites you. At some point, you'll see some aspect of either supply chain or manufacturing or retail, whatever it is, and it's just going to get you fired up. So absolutely find what brings you the most joy. For me, I think that really comes down to being a problem solver. When you're in supply chain, any aspect of supply chain, things go wrong that you couldn't have possibly have predicted. Really, you couldn't have possibly predicted. And you get to be the one that brings the solution to the table, and that's really exciting.
What about also, when we think of international trade, we tend to look at the ports, right? We're here locally. But what about UPS? What about FedEx? What about all these companies that actually move the goods, and there are incredible jobs out there? I think in some ways, at least for me, sometimes it's hard to cover this industry because we tend to revert back to the ports, but the ports are such a small number of jobs. I don't want to, by any means, damper anybody's wishes or dreams of working at the ports. I think they're great, but they're the small amount of jobs out there. What kind of jobs are out there?
Well, actually, we can link that to the ports, because 40% of the nation's imports come through the port. 60% of those imports are for manufacturing. California is the largest manufacturing state in the nation. So there's really, a lot of people forget that manufacturing is part of international trade. It's a huge part of international trade. So whether you are importing parts or you're exporting your parts or just some component of that, manufacturing is really exciting.
And Jeff, would you kind of expand on that? Like what kind of jobs you think are out there? The fact that sometimes it's so big it's hard to quantify?
To follow on with what CJ said, that 1 in every 4 manufacturing jobs in California is export dependent. That means that doesn't include imports. So probably half of all the jobs are somehow trade related in the state. But you can break it down into all different functions. The thing about globalization is that the firms and the companies, small and big companies, they don't become global overnight. It's an incremental process. And every facet of the enterprise is affected. The people in accounting and finance, they need to understand how to hedge against exchange rate, how to get paid from an international customer without putting themselves at some political or economic risk. The people in sales and marketing need to understand how those customers in China, for example, what needs they have that are very unique and special and how they satisfy those needs. The logistics and distribution supply chain management, they need to understand how to move things through customs. They need to understand how to coordinate activities when you have time zone changes and all sorts of other crazy things going on. And then operations and management, they need to be able to manage in an environment where people communicate differently, like fundamentally differently they communicate. So it cut across all sectors. But if you're going to ask me, and I was a student today, I would say there's really two main drivers and two main sort of set of skill that I think are going to serve you very well. One is, and you can put up number 2, one is that you should get some global understanding overall, some global understanding, and be very adaptable, okay? Understand how the world is laid out, understand where the opportunities are. Probably if I'd asked the question, most of you would have said Amazon, but Alibaba is more than 2 times bigger than Amazon and eBay put together, the largest e-commerce, company in the world. So globalization, understanding where the opportunities are. The second one is digitization, meaning digital capabilities, whether it's working with code, whether it's being able to modify websites, whether being able to manage data and do marketing campaigns. The Bureau of Labor Statistics points out where most of the jobs are going to be by 2020, and the largest area for job growth in the private sector is business services. When you go down a few steps, one of the largest areas in business services is marketing. And being a part-time marketing person, I can tell you that's not the old style marketing. It's digital marketing. It's digital marketing. How many of you are familiar with Singles Day? Okay.
What country?
Singles Day. Okay, so we have 2, 3. Tony is, I know Tony, I see some. Okay, maybe about 2%.
And what country is it in? He knows. What country is it in?
In China. So we have a Cyber Monday. Cyber Monday last year, you ran off to get things for Christmas. The U.S. spent $5 billion on Cyber Monday. In China, on Singles Day, which is kind of like their mocking of our Cyber Monday in a way, is they spent $15 billion in one day. $15 billion in one day. And guess what? 70% of that was ordered through a smartphone. 70%. Yes. So this is where we need to go. I feel so stupid when it comes to digital marketing, and I'm trying to learn everything I can. So you guys, as students, you're going to get way ahead of us. Just get out there and make something happen, because that's where the action is.
But you're kind of touching on something important, which is they're finding a bigger and bigger shift between as walking to the stores, anybody who's following up on retail knows what's going on in retail right now. They're having a really difficult time right now versus where the shopping is actually taking place. The technology is an important part of that. You know,
Yes, there's all sort of statistics out there about how people shop, but I think as we start looking at these numbers for emerging markets, that in the past many customers were unreachable because of distance, because the transportation system, you heard about trying to get around various cities around the world, is impossible to get to the mall and back in the same day because the traffic's horrible, they don't have transportation. But you can, when we start looking at the digital platform, now all of a sudden you have the connectability to all these people in every location. And they will use all different means to be able to get the products there. I'll give you a good example. Like one of the fastest growing online selling platform is Lazada. It's in Southeast Asia. Last year it had $350 million in sales. In 1 year, they grew to $1 billion in sales. $1 billion in sales. And so you look at these markets where they have traffic jam everywhere. You can't go a mile in a taxi. But what they figured out is they said, you know what? Instead of trying to deliver everything through independent methods and through traditional distributor, let's just get on the back of somebody else's distribution chain. And so a lot of things are now delivered through 7-Eleven, because you can find 7-Eleven everywhere. You pick it up 7-Eleven, you can take back the return at 7-Eleven, drop it, scan, and everything's scanned. I mean, emerging market, you think, everything's scanned. It's scanned, boom, boom, all done.
okay, I promised Brandon I would cover this, so I'm not going to leave it out. I am incredibly guilty of this. It is very common for me on my computer to have 2 screens going, television station on, at the same time have the radio on. I think I'm great at multitasking. Unfortunately, I'm not as adept at it as I would like to believe that I am. How important is it, because you're working with a lot of forward thinking, how important is it that yes, we can do that when we think we can, but that there are times when we need to shut down, we need to use our analytical skills, and we need to stay focused on something, because sometimes when we send emails and we don't read them before we send them, because we have three things going on, because we think we're so smart, we realize we are not, that we make mistakes. So as much as we don't want to tell people, let go of your phones, don't try and take mine away from me, by the way, bottom line is there are times when we need to put them down, and we need to just use our analytical thinking.
There is a time for that?
I'm sorry. I'll try and tell my family, but
Yeah, I think that, you know, to move away from the digital tether is important to do. It's so easy, you know, all of this technology was supposed to help us so that we could be able to relax. And in the reality is it's made it 10 times worse. And so you have to learn to separate yourself from your now third eye, which is dealing with you know, digital information and how you're going to get the information, and you can't answer the phone anymore. We have to text everyone and email, and it just goes on and on. So, anyway.
so basically, we're not saying put your phones away, but it's just one of the tips that everybody I've talked to, and a lot of employers are saying, hey, look, there are times when I really need my employees to put the phones away, and I really need them to focus, and I need them to click in. They're capable, they're intelligent, they're amazing people, but there's a time when I need them to focus. And unfortunately, I'm getting that look. Okay, there's one thing I would really like us to all share with them because of the vast experiences people have. What is a tip that you can leave people with? Is it an app? Is it a website? Is it a philosophy? What, your vast amount of experience, what would you like to leave them with? Something that's simple and easy. Well, put Jeff on the spot.
Yeah, I don't know. I just have one word in mind, and that's adaptability. You know, we are in an environment with all this change, and particularly with global competition, that we have to be able to turn on a dime. And I think that's it's something that's not really taught, it is, you know, in many colleges and universities, but it's something learned when you get thrown to the dogs. So I just say adaptability.
Someone asked me to do something once, and I wasn't sure I wanted to do it, and I called somebody I respected, and they said, why are you even thinking about that? They wouldn't have asked you to do that if they didn't think you were capable. Of course you should say yes, and that was about being adaptable.
Okay, well, I guess the thing that I would like to encourage everybody to do, especially as you're entering a career into supply chain, is to volunteer and become active in a group that is the closest to what you're doing in supply chain. So we have several groups that have core competencies. Mine, the Institute for Supply Management, is primarily people in the procurement field. There you will find your colleagues, you will find a chance to gain leadership experience that will teach you how to be a leader, that you can take into the workplace and that your employer will recognize. You will have mentors available to you there that will make a huge difference to you. I have had mentors in some of the leading companies in the world help me along the way, and now I find myself in the position of being a mentor. So my message is get out there and volunteer. You'll be the biggest one rewarded from it.
Well, what would you like to leave, the thought you'd like to leave?
Well, the thought I'd like to leave all of you with is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is what made America what it is today. The first industrial revolution was built on the backs of all Americans who decided to start a general store down the street, decided to, you know, do shoe horses, whatever it might have been. That commerce really built what America is today. What happened was we went through an industrial time in the 60s where we really did lose a relationship with entrepreneurship. And the only way that America is going to become a tremendous leader in the world again is by revitalization of entrepreneurship.
So be adaptable, volunteer, and don't forget about being an entrepreneur. One of the ones somebody told me a long time ago, anybody out there know what the 5 Ps of television production are? They are perfect for life. It's prior preparation prevents poor performance. And it doesn't matter whether you're going in to take a test, you're going in to get a new job, or you're thinking about what you can do to succeed. If you are well prepared, this one piece of paper is a result of all of this, right? So if you're well prepared, usually when you walk into something, if nothing else, you have great confidence, you know you've done your homework, and usually you succeed and you do well, and that's actually what our hope is for every single one of you, whether you're an educator or a student. And
Tracy, are you open for how many minutes of Q&A?
Oh, we do? Oh, I'm stressed out, okay. Me too, I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna come. So Brandon Warby, you said the chair you're gonna be sitting in isn't very stable, so the whole time I was just thinking, please don't let the chair collapse. Okay. I will, who would like to begin that first question? Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Sure. Great talk, guys. So you guys touched upon a lot of really great points in terms of global trade, in terms of the world coming together, utilizing technology, e-commerce, and mobile commerce. But I want you guys to speak to a little bit. I think a really topic that's talked about, especially in the political sphere today, is this dichotomy of countries coming together wanting to embrace global trade. So TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, there's a lot of free trade agreements being forged among countries that want to lower tariffs and encourage trade amongst each other, versus political candidates like Donald Trump who want to talk about, embark upon this road of protectionism and, repealing NAFTA and really, prevent global trade. So can you speak to a little bit about that and how that will affect industry, global supply chain, and even things in technology such as e-commerce and cross-border trade?
So I don't mean to insult anybody in the room, but there are two major trade agreements that are in Congress right now. One is the TPP, which is Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is Asian and Pacific countries, right? And then there's also the TTIP, Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, which would be the U.S. with European countries. So we have a lot going on right now. We're trying to reach out for foreign collaborations with different countries around the world. So who wants to kind of talk about the importance of us continuing for us to be friendly neighbors and conduct commerce between one another?
Talk about for a second. That program really, if you really look at it, and I'm not a staunch Republican or anything, I'm the person who's the best. If you look at it, the model really only works when everything is balanced. The imbalance in trade is what destroys relationships. Of course, the smaller parties are interested in trading with America because America is a big buyer and is a big consumer. If you flip it around the other way and you only have 13% export versus 44% export from Germany because we're buying all the cars, that is an imbalance. So I believe that the world trade positioning has to be incumbent upon all of us to make sure that it is a balanced system.
Okay, so this is a long discussion, long topic. It's very complicated, but let me share with you at least a perspective of where we've been and where we're going. First of all, trade agreements, they benefit the consumer, and consumption drives the global economy, let's face it. So you and I, we benefit when the barriers are low. The trade agreements, and more than likely they're going to be passed, with or without Mr. Trump or whoever else. Because historically, the trade agreements have been passed. Historically, they have, all of them. All that they mentioned, there hasn't been a major trade agreement that has not been passed by Congress. The U.S., for many years, we had open borders for goods. So we allowed many things in. These trade agreements are designed for us to gain better access to those emerging markets. The places like Vietnam, with TPP, have Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, on that one, Japan. These are big markets, many of them, and they have a lot of high barriers. So it's about harmonizing the rule. It's about reducing the barriers for us to access, and more importantly, believe it or not, there's a big discussion going on about data flows and such. That we look at e-commerce, and you want to go set up an e-commerce site in, let's say, Vietnam, and they say, well, you have to have a server in our country, and we're not going to let you handle financial transactions over the web. We're going to put in these barriers or whatever. So TPP and the others are about trying to make sure that the U.S. has access to these markets. So I think overall it's a good thing. I don't know that any of the presidential candidates are going to derail these things. Nobody's going to want to pay a lot more for what they're buying today for $5. You're not going to want to pay 10. I mean, let's face it.
Real quick. So anybody want to take a stab at what country has the largest number of trade agreements? And it's not the U.S., I will say that. Ideas? Chile. Yep. They are really a forward thinker in regards to a lot of things, and one of those happens to be trade. Yeah, young lady?
This will be the last question because students have to catch a bus and they're waiting. So, last question.
Now, that most of us in here are students in high school or college, what would you recommend as being the strongest emphasis for schooling? Because some business professionals think finance, others statistics, or just encompassing all of them.
So you like, what actual degree do you want next to your name when you graduate, is that what you're asking? Or you want a broader what field?
A little bit of both, because when I've gone into interviews and different things like that, I've had certain people tell me, don't do international business, do finance, and then go into international business. And I've gotten flip-flops of answers.
Okay. Jeff, do you mind starting? Because I think you'd be perfect for that.
Okay, so first of all, you're going to get a biased response from every one of us. So I will give you my perspective. That most first jobs for students are in what areas? What do you think? In sales. Most first job are a sales-oriented job. Whether you're working a retailer or you're, I don't know what you're doing, but somehow you land in sales and you learn that most of the people say no, you get frustrated, and it's very difficult. But overall, that's where most of us start. So that's where you're most likely to pick up things, so prepare yourself.
Is that okay? Did that answer your question? Is that okay? And from my perspective, I've worked in 6 different industries. Do what you love. You know, I'm sorry, but if you're, and it's the same thing. I mean, I'm sorry, but if your heart's in international trade, international relations, international law, international, go into it because, you know, you get up, you get ready to go to work, you drive to work, you're at work, you go home, you spend your life working. Love it, or it won't be the same, and you won't have the same kind of life. Personal, again, we're all saying personal opinion.
And give them a great hand. A great hand. Appreciate all these students. Thank you so much. Because of time for our students, Chris is going to do the last raffles really quick, and then students, you got to get out of here.
Okay, we're gonna move fast. We got a couple of 2 new cool items. Chromecast was donated as well. So some real stuff. So real fast, we're gonna do the UPS basketball. Okay. Okay. So. Okay, first raffle, so for UPS basketball, we're going to pick it, and what we're going to do is come on up and grab it, and we're going to move fast. We want to make sure we give these away. So again, UPS for the pool ball. And you got to be present to win. Okay. All right. For the basketball, we've got Delina Dor Lovinzo. Come on down. All right. Yep, next up, we got a football. Full of football. Is she coming? Is she here? She's in the restroom. Okay, we'll hold the basketball. She's getting ready. She's exercising. Okay, here we go. Next up, we got David Oriola. David Oriola for the football. I will do it later. Next up, we've got a UPS truck. A UPS truck. Come on. This is your vision. Around the distribution center. Okay, we've got Helene Taveras. Come on down. Now we got these are called, she's coming down right here. We've got Chromecast. These are cast your favorite entertainment to your television. It's pretty cool, some technology. These are late breaking entries here. So we have two Chromecast from Office Depot. Thank you, Office Depot, for donating those. Yeah, get up Office Depot. Nayeli Delgadillo.